this is a good question because a lot of women actually go through this. Jimmy, what do you say to a spouse who says, I can't save this marriage by myself? I am the only one working on it. Can one person save a marriage?
Yes, you did. And well, you did. I mean, well, you were doing the right thing when I was doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
1 Peter 2 says, well, you were. But Jesus Christ redeemed the earth all by himself. He didn't really have any help in the process. I mean, I know that God the Father and God the Holy Spirit were all a part of that process, but one man came and redeemed the earth. And 1 Peter 2 says that we're called like him to redeem each other. And then 1 Peter 3 tells women how to redeem their husbands and men how to redeem their wives. When you have a person who's a redeemer in a relationship, it means they're doing the right thing while the other person's doing the wrong thing. And God uses those people to save marriages. And I absolutely believe, thousands of testimonies that we know of people who are in a bad marriage. They prayed, they believed, they loved their spouse when their spouse was doing the wrong thing. One of the first counseling appointments I ever had was a woman who came to see me, and her husband was coming home, eating, bathing, and changing his clothes and going to spend the night with his girlfriend, okay, every night. And she came to see me and she said, I go to your church. And she said, my husband, and she described her husband. And I said, and your husband's sleeping with this gal every night? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, you can divorce him. I mean, he's violated the covenant of your marriage. I mean, you have every right to divorce him. And she said, well, I want my marriage. And I said, well, okay, well, let me tell you what my suggestion is. I said, but I want you to know in everything I'm saying, as far as I'm concerned, you can divorce him. And I said, but here's what I would encourage you to do. Go home. And tonight when he comes in, doll up, and fix him his favorite meal and serve him all night long and treat him just like you would Jesus if Jesus came to your house. And she just had this blank look on her face and she said, did you hear what I just said? I said, I heard what you just said and I told you can divorce him, but you're telling me you want to fight for your marriage. So I'm just telling you, this is how I would redeem the relationship if it were me and I wanted to fight for the marriage. And she just kind of gave me this blank stare and she said, so I'm supposed to love this man who is sleeping with another woman? I said, you're asking me how to save your marriage. You can go home, pack your bags, and go with God's blessing as far as I'm concerned, but you're asking me how to save your marriage. I'm saying treat him like you would Jesus if Jesus came to your house. But don't sleep with him. Don't sleep with him as long as he's sleeping with the other woman. But love him in every other way you can. So he came home that night and she did that. And I said, come back next week. So she came back next week and I said, well, what's happened? She said, well, I have his attention. And she said, I can tell you that. And she said, he's spending more time at home. He's still going over and spending the night with her. He said, but after 3 or 4 nights of me treating him really well, he was reading the paper over in the corner like he does. He dropped the paper and said, what are you up to? And she said, what do I say to him? And I said, well, the next time, go home, keep it up. And next time he says that, say, a preacher at church told me to treat you like this and he would like to talk to you. And she said, okay. So she left, and the next time she came back, he was with her. And so she walks in the door, and he just kind of slithers around the door, he just dreading talking to me. And so he comes in and sits down they're sitting there next to me, and so he said, he was kind of, slunk down in his chair, and he said, well, I know you know what I've done. I said, yeah, she's told me everything. And he said, well, and she told me she came and talked to you. And I said, yep, she did. She came and talked to me and she asked me what to do. And he said, well, I'm not doing good things. And, I know that. And, and she's treating me not right, and he said, I'm not treating her right. I said, that's right. That's right. She's doing the right thing and you're not doing the right thing. He said, I know. I don't feel good about that. And I said, well, let me tell you the answer. And he said, what? And I said, for you to turn your life to Jesus, because what you're doing is wrong and I know it's not fulfilling to you. And you need Jesus in your life, because that's the difference between you and her, is she's following Jesus and you're not. And he said, okay, I'm ready. He was one of the best Christian men I've ever met in my life. The most precious family that came to this church for years until they moved. Precious children. He was a man of God. And every time I saw him in the hallway, I thought, that's a man redeemed by a godly woman. She had every right to walk away, and I'm not telling any woman to stay in an abusive relationship. That's not what I'm saying. She came to me and said, I want to fight for my marriage. I could have told her, get a baseball bat, hide in the closet. As soon as he walks by, hit him as hard as you can. And, fire with fire. But when you fight fire with fire, you get a bigger fire. The only way you can defeat a spirit is with the opposite spirit. Jesus said, love your enemies. If you hate your enemies, you're fighting it with the same spirit. You just get more hate. But when you fight it with the opposite spirit, and so he had his heart turned away from her. He had left the marriage. He was violating the covenant of their marriage, and she presses in and begins to treat him like Jesus. It was an opposite spirit. And here's my experience over the years, because not every story ends up as good as hers did. But here's my experience. It'll either change them or run them off. When you treat them like Jesus, it'll either change them or run them off. And there was another woman in our church, precious woman. Her husband did exactly the same thing. And she loved him like Jesus. And she came to me, said exactly the same thing to me. I want to try to make my marriage work. And she loved that man. Didn't sleep with him, but she loved him. He came home, changed his clothes, went and slept with his girlfriend. And he left. And she came to me and said, well, my husband left. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not so sorry. And I said, because I know that he was not a good man to you. She said, what do I do now? And I said, you can go on with your life. God, you're free. You did everything right. You're free. And she married the most wonderful man you've ever met and was blessed. And I think they're still married. I haven't seen him in a while. Blessed woman. But both of those women did the right thing. And men do the same thing. They're redemptive men who redeem their marriages. So I'm saying, don't tell me one person can't change a marriage. Don't tell me that God using an individual can't redeem an entire world because he did it through Jesus. So don't give up. Regardless of what your friends are doing and regardless of what your natural mind tells you, you can redeem your marriage.
Thank you for joining us. Experience the life-changing series Lifelong Love Affair on CD or DVD. Follow your interests and get social by connecting with Jimmy and Karen and the Ministry of Marriage Today on Twitter. Marriage Today's latest book, Lifelong Love Affair, is an essential tool couples can turn to again and again for inspiration and strength. Order your copy today. Become a rock-solid partner today and equip yourself with the tools you need for a successful marriage. $14, $28, or $56 per month. Choose the partnership level that's right for you. Become a rock-solid partner today.